has been said about me is indeed humbling. And when he was saying this, I had to be mindful that it doesn't go and boost my ego. Good morning. I dare to call my conversation today Creating an Enlightened Society. I dared it. That took a lot of courage. But when you talk about creating an enlightened society, which is what I said yesterday, that we are here together because we wish to create such a society. Creating an enlightened society in some ways has equivalence to educating for GNH. Same thing. So you will have to hear a little bit more about GNH. As some people would call it, the subject is so vast and deep. Even if you hear 1,000 times, it will be different each time that you hear, and how I hope that is so. Now our guest of honor yesterday, Lempo Pradhan, talked a little bit about GNH. But if I just talk about the genesis of GNH, the origin of GNH, as it came to the public sphere, public awareness, way back in late 1970s, our fourth king, then the king, attended a meeting in Havana, Cuba, and he was back coming through Mumbai now. And as he arrived, the reporters came around and he was asked about Bhutan's GDP. And of course, he can't talk too much about Bhutan's GDP at that time, and even now. So it is then that he said, in Bhutan, we consider gross national happiness to be more important than GDP. So this was the first time that this phrase of GNH being more important than GDP was mentioned. By the way, I just set this one up on purpose like this. Rather than standing up, I'm sitting down. And that is not to be arrogant. I think it is much more humbling for me as I see it. If I sit down, then we are a little bit at the same level, talking to each other. And then I also open this window up a little bit on purpose so that some natural light will come in, and I have nothing to show you. The meaning of GNH is very profound. First of all, the happiness itself is profound. All beings seek happiness. Jokingly, when I go and talk to our students in various colleges in the university, say, for example, if you go to more tropical region down south in Gedu, there are lots of leeches. And then I say, even the leeches are seeking happiness. And then you go to Samti, you have mosquitoes. Then we say, even the mosquitoes are seeking happiness. So all beings seek happiness. And this is profoundly true. The Royal University of Bhutan is dispersed campus. I mean, in Thimpu, this used to be one of the campuses about a few months ago. And then we had RIHS here. Then we go right into the east, and some of this, if I go to JNP from top, it will take me 3 days. So it is a dispersed campus. We used to have 10 campuses, now it is 9 campuses, because RIHS, this is separated to become the University of Medical Sciences of Bhutan. So this and the public health college has gone there. So when I came in as a vice chancellor, I asked to myself, how can I bring such dispersed population with their own cultures, identities, student populations, staff together? And that is one of my challenges. And I pledged to myself as the Vice Chancellor that I will meet all the students of the university once a year. I will meet all the staff of the university once a year, and then I travel. So coming to the profoundness of the happiness and how true it is, as I find out through my research. When I go and talk to these students, I started talking to all students, and then it became that the student numbers increased from about 4,000 to 8,000 now, doubled. It became impossible, so we said at least I must meet the first years every time that they came in. And then when I talk to them like this and trying to confirm about happiness, whether this is profoundly true or not, I asked 3 questions with them. This happened more recently in my recent talks. I asked them, who wants to be happy? Now I would like to test that here by a show of hand. Who wants to be happy? This is always true. 100% want to be happy. Then I asked a second question, little more difficult than the first one. Who wants others to be happy? Who wants others to be happy? Can I see the show of hand? Those people who want others to be happy? This is also always true, almost 100%, sometimes 99%, sometimes 98%, but almost always true. The last question is still a bit more difficult, and that one is, who thinks others want you to be happy? Who thinks others want you to be happy? Can I see show of hand? Okay. Again, similar responses as I see it in the colleges. Here, not quite sure. You people, the hands don't go up readily. Okay, because you think, okay, I want her to be happy, but Nancy, I do not know whether she wants me to be happy, you know. And so we think about this, and about others wanting you to be happy, we're not quite sure. And this is something to be thought about. Logically, if you want to be happy, and you saw if all other people want you to be happy, because they said that about 98% of the people thought that they want others to be happy, which includes you. And then when we say, who thinks others want you to be happy? This has to be thought about a bit more carefully. And so I think here's something that we can probe. So this is something that I do with the students, and this is same response, and it confirms the fact that all beings want to be happy. It confirms. So it makes gross national happiness quite profound. Now, gross, the word gross is very important when we are talking about, and the national is important, it can be international. Gross, if you want GDP to be maximized, more production, more consumption, no? It has to go up like that. But if you want happiness to be the gross, meaning the total combined, the happiness of everybody. So optimal gross national happiness can only happen only if everybody is optimally happy. And that is very difficult. But it is possible. When Bhutan talked about gross national happiness some time ago, 10, 15 years ago, skeptics asked, how is it really meaningful to talk about this? Is it measurable? How can you measure? How can you show? How can we believe? And in Bhutan, as the king had already worked out by that time, because he was following this without saying it, he was following it in our all development plans. And that can be demonstrated by the things that we did in the earlier part of our development. We said that, okay, happiness is an internal personal experience, but we know at least some of the conditions for happiness which can be measured. The conditions can be measured. So we can create an environment that will help, that will allow people to experience happiness. And we said that at least 4, there will be others. It's multiplying already into 9, as Lembo was saying yesterday. But we said at least 4 as the pillars. One is, of course, the economy, but that is sustainable livelihood. Sustainable livelihood. Gandhi once said, the world has everything, the world has all to meet everybody's needs, but it does not have enough to meet everybody's greeds. And sustainable livelihood would, to a certain extent, mean that one, I think, when we were saying that economy or the sustainable livelihood is important. Sustainable environment is important. We think the environment is important. I think as human beings or all living beings, we have to eat food. We have to breathe the air. And we also like the natural environment of the birds and the fauna and the plants and the trees, greenery and everything else. We like it. And that is important for our sustenance and expressing our happiness. So environment is important, and sustainable environment has to be maintained. Then the third one we said was cultural vitality is important. People, when I ask our students, when I go and talk like this, when I say, when does happiness happen? They always say when other people are happy around them, they feel happy. When other people are doing something to them, they are feeling happy. So it is in the relationship. So it's the culture part is very important. The culture can include education. I don't quite believe it, but I think that's how we have categorized it. It can involve all our cultural art forms and everything else. And then you need good governance. Good governance has to make sure all these 3 things happen in the way that it would allow the greatest happiness to happen for individuals. Then, of course, people like us ask, is that enough? If all the 4 things are there, can we have optimal gross national happiness? That's something to ponder. I'm not quite sure, many people might have seen this book. A fellow called Matthew Ricard wrote a beautiful book about 10 years ago called A Guide to Developing Life's Most Important Skill, Happiness. It's a very readable book, and I look at it over and over again. In one of the parts where he called the sociology of happiness, he brings together many studies that has been done around the world, which, as he summarizes, covered about 70 countries with hundreds of thousands of people being studied, asked this question about happiness. And he summarizes to say that economic well-being, with all the associated well-being things that we normally associate with economy, if we have to measure individual people's happiness levels, economic well-being contributes 15% of our well-being, 15%, which is surprising. But this 15% is very important. Without 15%, you will not have happiness. This is, I suppose, the economic needs, food, shelter, clothing, as we would need without wants. I think many studies where they have looked at, and the people's income level to a certain point makes a lot of difference for people's happiness. After that, it doesn't quite contribute. Probably after that, after some time, it will have negative impact because you will be worried about how to guard your wealth. Then, surprisingly, the second one, he says that genetic disposition, 25%. Some people are happy by nature, as we call it. But in Buddhist terms, we will not call it by nature. We will call it by sunam, means your collected merit, the causes. That means you have, and then I was talking, just little story again, diversion. As I was the Secretary of Education, I used to travel across the country. And in a very small primary school in Auto, talking to little kids, and then I was just saying, I thought it was everybody is going to come and there are going to be bigger kids. And this just happened that on that day, these were only little kids who came. And then I was saying, what can I talk that is meaningful to these people? And then asked, if you plant potatoes, what do you get? And they said, potatoes, of course. And I said, if you plant chilies, what will you get? They said, chilies. And then I said, if you are good to other people, what will you get? Other people will be good to you. If you punch somebody on the nose, what will happen? They said, they'll punch me back probably on the nose. So genetic disposition, asana, that means how you collect in your consciousness, I suppose. That's my interpretation of it anyway. And then 60%, as he concludes, which means that 15 plus 25 is 40, 60% left. And 60%, he concludes more or less, little bit I'm making it up, but I think because I have got no time to really tell you about the details, but you can look at the book. 60% he says, we can learn to be happy. We can teach people to be happy. We can teach. So that gives us as educators, researchers, a lot of power. The person, our fourth king, who said GNH is more important than GDP, seemed to have realized this long time ago as he was talking about GNH. And he didn't talk too much about GNH, I think. He said just once, and that was probably enough. And then whenever our teachers meet him, he would say, the purpose, what should the teachers do? What is our work? He would say, your most important work is teaching children to be mindful of their actions. They should be mindful in such a way that that will bring greater happiness for others, and that will eventually bring greater happiness for yourself. If you can teach that, we will be a happier society. And this is indeed very easy to say, very difficult to do. I, as a Director of Education, the Secretary of Education, struggled with this one. Because every time there's a fight in Thimpu Street, the gangs, little bit of things that we would not like to see, education get blamed, and rightly so. We are not educating our people rightly. And that is how I started. I was forced into starting a journey to looking at myself. Our present king the other day, visiting Samti College of Education, he asked 2 questions to the teachers. I saw it in the TV. And one of the things he said was, can you give something that you do not have? You can only give what you have. And that was the same thing. If we had to explore and understand people's mind, we have to understand our own mind. How can I say that you have to understand your mind if I cannot even claim that I have looked at my mind and I understand my mind, and how does it govern my life? So when I go to the colleges and meet our students, I ask them, where does happiness happen? If you say you want to be happy, where does happiness happen? When does it happen? And I could have asked the same question, we could have an interaction, but we don't have time. But if I just conclude, there are many, many interesting questions, answers that come up. But most of them say it happens in their heart. And many of them say it happens in their mind. And then we say, okay, if you want happiness, you said so, and you think that it happens in your mind, I ask them, who has looked at your mind? Have you looked at your mind yourself? I ask this question. Can I ask this question? Have you looked at your mind? How many people have looked at their mind? Okay, larger number of people than I normally get in my colleges, and I can expect that because we are Aikun. We are Aikun children. Okay, so then I ask, do you like to look at your mind? And this is what I do. And then say, yes, we would like to look at our mind. I have never looked at it. I do not know how I can look at my mind, but I'd like to look at my mind. So, would you like to look at your mind? Yes? Okay. Let's look at our mind, just as an exercise. This is kind of an interval. So, we can now say that we have looked at our mind. All of us. Now, I think I also have a discussion after this and say what happened during this time. And we can have many hours of discussion and not boring. After this, I was asking in some time ago, almost about 3 years ago now, in Shirapse College, far away in the east, in one of our colleges. These were first years. They just come in, from the school, having finished their class 12. And then I was surprised in Shirapse College, much bigger hall, about maybe 300, 400 people can fit. And we were asking and say, who is doing this one? Have you been doing this? Because we introduced this one in the school some years ago, and they do a little bit of it every day, maybe. And one girl at the back stood up at the back in the balcony, and I was surprised that somebody took the mic to her, and then she was very confident, and she said that I'd like to say something about this. And she said that from the time that it was introduced to her in the school, she actually connected quite well. And then she has been doing 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. By the time that she was in Shirapse College, she was doing about half an hour every day. And she said that she is doing it because it has brought a profound impact on her. And the most visible impact that she could see as a student is in her study and the grades. She was able to observe what was happening. Her grades, for no other reason, just went up steadily, and she could watch herself that happening. And she said that she cannot attribute this to anything else except this practice that she was able to do. And then you look at many researchers now that's happening, some of it in some of the leading universities in United States, Europe. Recently we had Max, what is this? Max Doji? Max in Germany. Max Planck. Max Planck. Yes, where they have put in a lot of money to do research, where they have about 100 volunteers who go through this kind of exercises. They are watching the impact. And then there are, even in Kyoto, we have Kokoro. Now you have a research institute, and many people are establishing this. And what they are finding is that, yes, definitely as students, this is something that's worthwhile promoting as a study skill for our students, if nothing else, because it helps study. No greater study skill than this. Because it helps students to learn how to focus in what they are doing. It also relaxes them and helps them to become creative. Relax, which is what is required. And then we were asking this question, we are discussing this with one of our learned lamas here, Jongsa Khense, and talking about how it does help. He was saying that maybe now more and more people begin to show that the intelligence, or what we call, our mind, the potential of our mind is limitless. That even the most intelligent person, like Einstein, probably used about 2% of what it is capable of, which means we can learn, we can teach our people to develop this faculty. Now, I'm just throwing these loose generalizations because it's supposed to be about thinking and loosening our thoughts in this conference. And of course, it becomes, if you are, when you do this, you become mindful about your actions. Anything that you do, you become aware of other people, other beings, and how your actions affect and impact. Your thoughts affect and impact. Your speech affect and impact other people around you or other beings around you. And you become very mindful. So, a lot of bonuses, as some people say. What do we do in the Royal University of Bhutan then? So what? In the Royal University of Bhutan, we have been quite conscious, trying to see now how can we use this one. Can we use this to develop into a path or a way that we can say that the Royal University of Bhutan has got this thing extra over Oxford or Harvard or Yale. And in our discussions, in our deliberations, we became quite convinced that this is something that we can show, because Bhutan offers this opportunity, because it's there in our environment, it's there in our culture. If it can be done, it can be done better in Bhutan, because the environment is already there. Other places, this has to be created, and it is quite a task. I could see what Thimpu Rinpoche had to do in Boulder and other parts where he tried to establish. He had to create this culture. But here in Bhutan, we have. So we said that, all right, how can we do that in the Royal University of Bhutan? We said, we don't disturb our traditional subjects. We leave it as it is. Because if you try and change that one, very difficult. We can introduce a strand of studies, additional studies, called personal development studies. And those studies will help them to explore their inner selves. The other studies that we have traditionally explored the outside world. Now this one will help to explore inside themselves, and therefore develop themselves, so start a journey. We introduced what we call a human values, or GNH values as we call it, they are same thing, as a foundation course for all our students, compulsory, non-credited, starting from 2013 autumn. And it is already having some impacts. I mean, you can't say a revolutionary impact, it cannot have. And Rajul Asthana is sitting here in front, who came, and while we have been talking about this, we found that actually in India, in some of the IITs, some professors had been working very hard, worked about 30 years, spent most of their life doing this. Mechanical engineers, professors of mechanical engineers, professors of electronics and communications engineering got together to actually say that, because they were worried. What is happening to their students? Because they can't see anything beyond money and power. Their life is not about that. Life is more than that. And because of that, they have been doing this. And this has been quite a structured course. So we said, can we use it? They said, of course. And they said that even we can train people. So we have a training program that's starting next week in Gedu College. I do not know, about 150, whatever number of people who are attending. Some people attending from India, some people attending, of course, from within our own university. So that is human values. And then we say that that has to be provided as a seminar to all the students, and then sort of probed, followed through little discussions, tutorials, and so on. These experiments are happening in all our colleges. Second, we say that if we say that Royal University of Bhutan has to be GNH inspired. What does it mean? How does it have to translate into our classroom practices? And we started again another strand, developing a GNH pedagogy. And we found out that what you call critical pedagogy and contemplative education, if you combine them, it just actually forms a beautiful GNH pedagogy. The only thing is, not many people can follow, it's difficult. So we have started a process. Deborah Young from Naropa University is sitting here, and then we had a small presentation yesterday from Tashi and Deborah in one of the sessions. And we said, how can we do that? It's very difficult. You know, we have established people with their traditions, and they've been doing this for 10 years, 15 years, and they say, okay, we have a new way of doing it. And they say, oh, you know, you try and teach me. But this can only be started with volunteers within our colleges. So we have about 52 volunteers across all the colleges in groups of 3, 4, because they form into collaborative groups into our participatory action research. And we are hoping that this group will eventually expand and give 10 years, give 8 years, 5 years. This will expand to something like 80-90% of our faculty will be slowly following. So, but the 50 or 52 of them at the moment who are doing are actually pioneers into this. And we are saying that there should be PhDs done in this one. And then this is not only something that we would like to hide and keep it here, we would like to export, because we like to believe that this is something good. And then what we are trying to do, the third thing is we are saying that in each of the, in the campuses of our university, there should be a GNH consistent environment. And that includes that exercise that we did just now, as I demonstrated what I do with my students. So that kind of communities we try and breed so that people will, if they want to do this, there is a support mechanism to do that one. And that we are saying that in our administration, in the clubs, in the classrooms, in the dining halls, in the student residences, this kind of a regard for others should prevail. And that, as I said yesterday, is a little bit of an uphill task because we're beginning. But I think this is not undoable, it is doable. We can create such an environment. So that's what we are doing, 3 things in the Royal University of Bhutan. Human values as a foundation course, GNH pedagogy, and GNH consistent environment, including mindfulness practice or meditation. So I think I have more than used my time, sorry about that. But I'd like to conclude here with a dedication. We always make the dedication. We say that whatever we have to bank it. We have to put it in the bank. Otherwise, it will be stolen. Or we just lose it to the wind or whatever. But if you put the bank, then it's okay. So that one, quite often, at the end of an inspirational discussion or talk or prayer, we just say these 2 lines. Jangchup semcho rinpoche, makepa nam ke jurji, kewa nyampa me pai gongle gongdo pelo sho. That means Jangchup Sem is the altruistic mind, Jangchup Sem. That means I wish all, I love, I have compassion for all others, and I say that I have that compassion more than what I have for me. I forget myself when I have compassion, love and compassion for all other beings, so that they'll be happier, they'll be more comfortable, you know. That thought, that vision, if Jangchup Semcho Rinpoche let it be born in those where it wasn't, they did not have the awareness of this one. Let this awareness arise. And if already people had some awareness of love and compassion for others, forgetting themselves, then let it increase evermore. That is what it says. And with that, thank you very much.